Good morning. This is our Sunday morning Bible study that was for a period of time Thursday Theology, or Theology Thursday. And so this has been our Monday morning or our Sunday morning Bible study during the month of July. All right, so this is the last Sunday of July. So next week you have a new teacher and you have a new format. So look forward to that. So I'm wrapping up what we called honoring our neighbor's faith. Okay, it was designed to be sort of an introduction and a look at some of the faiths that have come to our country and come to our neighborhood. And so we're going to end this series with a little trivia to begin with. I've been doing the trivia at the end, but we're going to do the trivia at the beginning today. Okay, now you don't need to know just your neighbor's faith. You need to know your own faith as well. And as Christians, I have a question for you. See that? What are the four Gospels? The four Gospels. The first four books of the New Testament. Matthew, that's what the M stands for. Then Mark, the second M. Then Luke. Then John. All right? So hopefully you got that one. Got you an easy question to begin with. All right? All right, now I'm going to show you a quote. And I want you to tell me, or obviously you can't tell me, but I want you to think to yourself, what is the answer? Okay? God helps those who help themselves. That is found in what religion? God helps those who help themselves. Any guesses? There is no religion that teaches God helps those who help themselves. Christianity doesn't teach it. Judaism doesn't teach it. It's not found in any holy book. It is something that you hear a lot, and that's one of the dangers of religion, is that there's a lot of things that pose as religion that really don't have anything to do with it. That just kind of snuck in here. God helps those who help themselves. Well, could have said that's a quote from W.C. Fields or something. All right. Buddhism. Buddhism has these are called the Four Noble Truths. And you can see that number one is life is S. Do you know what S is? Four Noble Truths. The first one is life is Got it? Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. The first one is life is suffering. Life is suffering. So they begin with the obvious. The second noble truth is S has an origin. That's the second of the noble truths. And of course, that S is suffering. Suffering has an origin. It has some place in their teaching. Suffering comes from somewhere. It doesn't come from nowhere. But the third noble truth is S can be owed. So the S is going to be suffering. Suffering can be maybe you're Googling the Four Noble Truths now. Suffering can be overcome. That's the third. Suffering can be overcome. All right. Well, how do you overcome? That's the fourth noble truth. The path of overcoming is known as the Eightfold Path. That's the fourth of the Four Noble Truths. So the path of overcoming is the Eightfold Path, and the Eightfold Path to, sort of help you have a hold of it. The Eightfold Path would be sort of what Christians, I don't know that we have a comparable, but it is in doing the practices of the Eightfold Path. It is in doing those practices that you're able to overcome the suffering. All right? Now, Christians, we are Trinitarians. We believe there is one God, and this one God reveals itself in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. All right? But there are faiths that practice Unitarianism. Unitarianism. Now, I guess you can probably figure out what Unitarianism means. Una, one. So they believe in one God, but not like Trinitarians believe in one God, but Unitarian or Unitarianism. So, what faiths practice Unitarianism? Well, Jews, for one. Muslims, for another. Even the Unitarian Universalist Church. They're Unitarian. They practice Unitarianism. They believe this one. So, all right, I'm going to show you a symbol. All right. And I'd like you to tell me, or to at least tell your spouse or whoever you're sitting on the couch with watching this, you name it. All right. What is this symbol commonly called? You know that. Think about it. No, it's not Zen. It's yin and yang. Two opposite but complementary forces. Now, do you know what faiths practice yin or yang, or teach yin and yang? Well, you're probably thinking of something from the Asian area, from the Orient. Confucianism, Taoism, and Chinese popular religion all hold to yin and yang. And just in case you're wondering, the yin is the dark part, the female, and the cool is what it represents. And the yang is the bright, the white, the male, and warm. All right, so that's yin and yang. And there's your trivia for today. Okay? Now, as I wrap things up and wrap this introduction up, I'm going to show you a series of pictures. And that's what I'm going to do primarily, is show you some pictures and talk about the pictures and, try to put some things in context, okay? The first one I'm actually not going to give you the answer to. It's really not the trivia part, actually. I showed you this, I think it was week 1. This wrap that he's putting on his head is called something. And these are Sikhs. All right? Think about different faiths and how different faiths have some sort of dress that reveals who they are. All right? When you think of Mennonites, you think of that black brimmed hat. When you think of Buddhist monks, you think of that orange robe or drape that they wear. When you think of Islamic women, you think of the hijab that is full and it has a headdress and oftentimes something over their mouth so that all you see is their eyes. Of course, beyond dress, there are things that faiths have that are not something that is a dress that you wear or a robe that you wear, but it is nevertheless a symbol that you often use in adorning yourself. Christians would wear a cross. They oftentimes have a cross on a necklace or something, or maybe on bracelet. Jews would have the Star of David, sometimes on a necklace as well, or maybe a brooch of some sort. There's a variety of ways in which we adorn ourselves in powerful ways that remind us of our faiths, okay? Whether it be something like this, or whether it be jewelry. And so, does this say that people who do this or wear a cross are more committed to their faith? I don't know that it says that. It probably does say that we keep our faith in front of us more. We try to remind ourselves of what is our values. And that's what these ways of dressing sort of reinforce, is that we have a set of values. Well, one of the important parts of religious tradition and religious history is art. Now, a lot of art exists that is Christian art. The world is full of Christian art. But the world is actually full of a lot of religious art. Over in China and Japan and Korea, you can find a lot of artwork that reflects the Buddhism, Taoism. India, you can find artwork that reflects Hindus. So you can almost always find some sort of artwork. And this is a famous piece of Christian art. This is from the Sistine Chapel in Rome. And this is obviously a very famous picture of God reaching down to man. Art tells you a lot about a particular faith. In fact, let's think about this for a moment. Let me see if I can get these hands up here closer to you. You see, earlier I had a quote, God helps those who help themselves. This is exactly the opposite. You see the man's hand? The human hand is so absolutely frail and weak. It looks practically lifeless. It is God who is doing all the work here. God is the one whose muscles are taut on his arm, and he is reaching out with his hand, and he is trying to touch man, trying to reach man. And that's a powerful symbol of Christianity, is that God is the one in the business of trying to get to us. Left on our own, well, you've seen our kind. We run everywhere. We'll hide anywhere. But God is the one who's doing all the reaching, and man's the one who's just feebly throwing his hand up. But art is powerful. And if I was you, I would do some searches on religious art, Christian art. You'll find some powerful images that express the meaningful things about the faith. You don't do artwork about trivial things. Artwork and artistic expression are usually about the important centerpieces to faith. All right? All right. This is the Torah. I wish I knew what they called this that goes over the Torah. I want to call it a covering or a sleeve. I'm sure there's a name for it. I probably should have looked it up, but I didn't. But nevertheless, Jewish congregations have Torahs, and they're kept very safely and reverently. And they oftentimes have these ornate coverings on them that reveal what the particular Torah's history is, maybe possibly where it comes from and so forth. I know I was down in the Charleston synagogue, maybe now 5 or 6 years ago, and their Torah has a really interesting history to it. I think it's a Holocaust. It came from somewhere in, I don't think it was Germany, but it was maybe Poland or somewhere where the Nazis actually occupied. And so, that's always a beautiful, not just practical thing to have your Torah, but it's also a keepsake because it's got a lot of history to it. Well, one of the things common when we now turn our attention to say what is common about these faiths, what do they hold in common? One of the things is, with many of these faiths, is buildings. Faiths have, for centuries, had buildings, places of worship. Now, Christians and Jews and others would all tell you, well, the people of God are more than the building. Yeah, but we still keep building buildings. I'll show you this one. And you can automatically tell me, you know what that is. See the Star of David in the middle? That's a synagogue. All right? But it's a gathering of people there to worship God. That is a Christian church. It happens to be, I believe I got this from Niger or Nigeria. But that's a Christian church. They needed a place to worship, and that's it. And it may be very simple, but it's their place of worship. And you got to imagine that they love and want to take care of that one as well as these folks want to love and take care of this one. These are sacred places to people. This is called the Blue Mosque. It's in Istanbul. And you can imagine that just like the Jews want to take care of their synagogue and the Christians want to take care of their church, that the Muslims want to take care of their mosque as well. Make sure that they're taken care of, they're well maintained. And the Blue Mosque is one of the most famous mosques in the world. Here, this is another church. I wanted to give you a church that looked a little more stately. And this is, I know it's in Chicago, remember that much, but I don't remember the name of the church. But anyway, you see the steeple, the cross on the top. You know, all of these have something that gives them away that, like, there's no way you could, not know that was a mosque by the very design of it. Then the Star of David on this other piece gives it away. The Star of David up there. So all of them have their symbols that are powerful. I want to show you this one, and I'm going to be silent for a moment and see if you can tell me what faith this is connected to. You got it? That's the Mormon Tabernacle in Salt Lake City. And a beautiful sunset. But that's the Mormon Tabernacle. Beautiful. But other than buildings, are there things that these faiths hold in common? We talked a little bit in session 2 that, yeah, there's some external things that are very much in common, and there were some internal things about them that were very, very different. But I'm trying, as I wrap these things up, to sort of remind you of some of those external things that they share in common. And buildings is one of them. But another one is this. These are young people gathered for prayer. Okay? And that's, if you wanted to figure that out, that's Christian prayer, because you can see the Bibles on their laps. So they've gathered for Christian prayer. All right? But we're not the only ones who pray. These are 3 Muslim women. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're doing the same thing. They've gathered for prayer. And you know, if you didn't have the scarves on their heads, they look very similar to the other picture you saw of the Christians praying. And then there's this prayer. Now the interesting thing about this is a Jewish prayer. Can you see the difference? Other than one's in black and white, one's color. The Muslim prayer were all women. The Christian prayer were men and women. And this Jewish prayer that I picked up are all men. And you can see them wearing their prayer shawls. But prayer is an important part of those faiths. and an important part of their expression of their faith to the world. So I'll wrap up with this. This is not exactly the study that I imagined we would have. When it was picked out in midsummer or mid-June, it's not exactly what I would have imagined. Possibly more time would have allowed me a little more freedom to explore deeper into our neighbor's faith. But, even if you'd given me more time, I might have chased a lot more rabbits. Maybe the big lesson here is the staff has learned that, I can get easily distracted and go down rabbit holes with a lot of different things. But hopefully I have provided you some measure of I want to learn more. That's what I hope I've done is, inspired you to want to learn more. So you can go and you can poke around at some of the websites featured in Lesson 1, and those websites are also included in the credits of this section, or of this session. But just to remind you, the Khan Academy has a way that you can study religion. BBC Religion was another place I told you could go. And then there's a great TED, it's called TED Ed, 5 Major World Religions. It's a sort of a cartoonish look at the 5 major religions. But you can go and poke around there, because hopefully what I really tried to do here is to inspire you to want to learn more. The trivia has been fun, and I think it's also been educational. I also expect the photos I have used today have provided a measure of context to the subject. Yet our point in doing this was to inspire us to be respectful of our neighbors. That was sort of the point. Respectful of our neighbors. All neighbors. That neighbor that goes to an independent Bible church, or that neighbor that goes to the Islamic Center, to be respectful of their faiths. The neighbor's child who plays soccer with your daughter, she goes to the Catholic Church, and we want you to be respectful of her faith. That neighbor that you work with, while on Sundays you're going to church, they're going on Saturday or Friday to synagogue. And we even want you to be respectful to that neighbor that refuses to go to any religious services. That neighbor also deserves respect. The world is getting smaller. That's not good news or bad news. It's, just news. And as I wrap things up, I would like to leave you with at least 2 last thoughts. While religions are different in external ways, and similar in some internal ways, what we need is for all faiths to speak their most healing words. We don't need faiths to speak their most destructive and divisive words. We need them to speak their most truthful, healing words. I take it as a compliment when people say to me, you're a credit to your faith. I think what they're saying is that I'm living into the fullness of Christ's teachings. I don't want anybody to look at me and say, you are a bad example of Christianity. There will be reasons to pay attention to the differences, but there is no need for these differences to lead to violence or ridicule if we are living in the light of our faith. And my final thought is, how do we be ourselves in a pluralistic world? With the exception of the beauty of a rose garden, which is absolutely beautiful with only one sort of flower displayed, roses, most gardens' beauty is in the pluralism of the plants. The diversity of the plants create a richness of aromas and visual sensations. The smell, the color, and the texture make it more, not less beautiful. Now, because we are deeply in love with our faith, we find it hard to imagine anything more beautiful than our beloved religion. I've thought a lot about this. The rising from the water of baptism, man, that's inspiring. The smell of a spring morning at an Easter sunrise service. I can smell that right now as I sit here in my office. The feeling of singing a rich hymn of faith as we lay a beloved saint to rest is so absolutely comforting. The garden is beautiful. It is. But the flowers make it so. So let's not forget to tend, nurture, and water our own flower, the one that we find the most beautiful. And at the same time, respect the beauty of the entire garden. Thanks for listening.